It started on a Wednesday. Not the kind of day people remember. It wasn't our anniversary. It wasn't her birthday. Just a regular, gray Wednesday. I had just gotten home from work, briefcase still in my hand, when I noticed her shoes weren't by the door. Rachel always left her shoes right there, like clockwork. Heels lined up perfectly beside my old sneakers. But that day, they weren't. I called out her name once, then twice. The silence that responded didn't feel empty. It felt full, like it was holding its breath. I didn't panic. I wasn't the kind of man who rushed to conclusions. But that night, something in my chest wouldn't sit right. I told myself she was stuck at work, or maybe with her sister, maybe traffic, maybe a meeting, maybe, but I didn't really believe any of it. She came home late, real late, 12:47 a.m. I heard the door gently creak open. No fumbling, no rush. She entered like someone returning to a hotel, not a home. I didn't get up. I just lay there, eyes shut but ears open. She tiptoed into the bedroom. The scent followed her, one I hadn't smelled before. Musky, sharp, expensive. It wasn't hers. It wasn't mine. It wasn't us. She slid under the covers and whispered, "Sorry, long day." Her voice was soft, soft like guilt. I didn't reply, just gave a grunt, turned away from her, and stared at the wall. And in that stillness, in that cold 2-foot gap between our bodies in bed, I knew. She was seeing someone else. It took me a week to find the proof. Not because I was desperate, but because I needed to know for sure. I wasn't going to accuse the woman I married on a hunch and perfume. I owed her more than that. Or maybe I just owe myself closure. Rachel had been acting different for months, but I chalked it up to stress. She was quieter, less affectionate. Her phone never left her side anymore. She used to leave on the counter while we ate dinner. Now it was face down, always locked. So I waited. One evening, she asked me to pick up groceries. I nodded, drove around the block, then circled back and parked. Waited. 10 minutes later, a sleek black car pulled up. I watched as she opened the front door and ran out. No hesitation. She got into the car like it was routine, like it was normal, like it wasn't betrayal. I didn't follow. I just sat there, gripping the wheel. I stared at the house I worked my hands raw to pay for. The house she smiled in, made love in, lied in. And I knew that I'd never look at her the same again. The next day, I did something strange. I made her coffee, toasted her bagel, just right, golden brown, light smear of cream cheese. She smiled like nothing was wrong, like her lips hadn't touched another man's mouth the night before. "Thank you, babe," she said casually, kissing my cheek. I smiled back, but inside, I was unraveling. That weekend, I started preparing my exit. Not loud, not messy, just quiet and complete. I met with a lawyer. I got a private P.O. box. I opened a separate bank account. I started gathering documents. Marriage license, joint assets, the mortgage in both our names. I made photocopies of everything. I didn't plan on revenge. I planned on freedom. But fate doesn't give clean exits. Not when love and lies live in the same house. Because on a rainy Sunday afternoon, while I was sorting through our storage boxes in the garage, I found something I wasn't supposed to see. An envelope, sealed, hidden inside one of her old purses. Postmarked 5 months ago. It wasn't addressed to me. It was addressed to a man named Ethan Granger. And the handwriting? It was hers. I didn't open the envelope right away. I just held it in my hands, feeling the weight of it like it was made of lead. There was something about the way it was tucked away, deep in a purse that hadn't seen daylight in years, that told me this wasn't just some forgotten scrap. This was intentional, hidden, protected. I stared at the name. Ethan Granger. The name meant nothing to me. I had never heard Rachel mention him. Not once. We'd been together 5 years, married for 3.5. I thought I knew every name that had passed through her life. Exes, friends, colleagues. But Ethan? Ethan was new, or old, and both possibilities made my stomach churn. I took the letter inside, sat at the kitchen table, and just looked at it under the light for a long time. The air in the house felt thick, too quiet, like the walls were holding secrets I wasn't supposed to hear. Eventually, I opened it. The paper inside was folded twice. Neatly, carefully. She had taken her time, and then I read it. I don't know if this was a mistake or fate, but seeing you again after all these years, I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. About you. About us. You always said timing was our biggest enemy, and maybe it still is, but the way you looked at me that day, like nothing had changed, made me feel alive again. I didn't realize how numb I'd become until you touched my hand. It's like my whole world cracked open, and I saw what I've been missing. I don't know what this means. I don't know what to do, but I needed to tell you. I haven't stopped thinking about you since. No dates, no location, no promises, just feelings. Dangerous ones. I folded the letter back, careful not to leave a mark. Placed it exactly where I found it. Zipped the purse shut and returned it to the bin in the garage. And then I sat in silence for 3 hours. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared at the life I thought I had, now feeling like a skin I needed to shed. I started researching Ethan Granger that night. Rachel was asleep upstairs, unaware that the man lying next to her knew everything. LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, every platform I could find. It didn't take long. He was a real estate agent in Portland. Tall, tan, that polished smile people learn when they sell homes to the upper class. I found a few pictures of him, one in particular standing beside Rachel at a college reunion 6 years ago. My heart sank. He had been in her life before me. He wasn't new. He was the unfinished chapter, and I was the intermission. For a few days, I pretended, played the husband role, woke up beside her, made jokes at dinner, kept score in my head. Every laugh, every kiss, every "I love you" she tossed so easily, it all sounded like static now. Like she was reciting lines from a script she stopped believing in years ago. But the worst part? She didn't know I knew, and that made me invisible. One night, she fell asleep early on the couch. I checked her phone while it charged on the table beside her. I didn't expect to find anything obvious. She was too careful for that. But I checked her deleted messages, her hidden album, notes app, and there it was. Under a locked note titled Budget Ideas was a long thread of copied messages. You made me feel like a woman again. I wish I'd never let you go. He doesn't look at me the way you do. I keep wondering if we're wasting time not being together. There were no names, but I didn't need them. I already knew whose hands those words were meant for. That weekend, I packed my bags. Just one suitcase, a few shirts, jeans, documents. I left the wedding album on the bed closed. I didn't leave a note. I didn't need to. She'd know why. I left at 4:17 a.m. The world was still sleeping. The streetlights hummed. Even the air felt reluctant to move. I didn't look back. I didn't want to see the house I built her, the life I tried to build with her, one last time. It already felt like someone else's story. I disappeared, rented a studio in a town 3 hours away. No social media. Changed my number. I quit my job and started freelance work under a different name. I told no one. Not my parents. Not my friends. Not even my brother. I vanished. Because I needed silence. Because I needed to remember who I was without her lies echoing in my ears. And for a year, she didn't find me. Not until last week. It was a Thursday. The kind of gray, overcast morning where nothing feels urgent. I had just poured my first cup of coffee, sat down at my tiny secondhand desk, and opened my laptop to check emails when I heard it. A knock on the door. 3 quick taps. I froze. I hadn't had visitors in months. No deliveries. No neighbors checking in. I kept my life simple, minimal, quiet. I stood up slowly, peered through the peephole, and felt my lungs stop working. It was her, Rachel, standing there like a ghost dragged out of my memories. Hair tied back, coat clutched tight against her chest, eyes rimmed with something that looked like regret. But I didn't trust myself to believe it. She looked thinner. Not sick, but like life had been pressing down on her. I didn't open the door. I stepped back, sat on the edge of the bed, waited, let her knock again. When she spoke, her voice cracked through the wood like a bullet. "Lucas, I know you're in there. Please." I hated that my body still reacted to her voice. That after everything, there was still a part of me wired to respond to her. But I didn't move. I've been looking for you for months, she continued, her voice trembling. I know I don't deserve to even ask, but please, just 5 minutes. Silence. Then, I'm not here to make excuses. I just need to talk to you. Please. I opened the door. Not because I forgave her. Not because I missed her. Because I needed to know why. She stepped inside cautiously, like she was walking into a memory too fragile to touch. The apartment was plain. One small sofa, one table, one lamp, no photos, nothing personal. And I saw the way her eyes scanned the room like she was trying to find proof that I had moved on, and found none. "Nice place," she said softly. I didn't respond. She sat down on the couch. I remained standing. She folded her hands in her lap, cleared her throat. I've rehearsed this moment 1,000 times. But now that I'm here, I don't know what to say. I finally spoke. "Start with why." Her eyes welled up. "I messed everything up." "That's not a reason," I said. "That's a result." She nodded, wiping under her eye. "Ethan, it wasn't supposed to be anything. He showed up again. I didn't go looking. We ran into each other at a conference. Just a conversation over coffee. And it brought back something I thought I had buried. And you decided to cheat." She flinched. "It didn't start that way. But it ended that way." She looked at me then. Really looked at me. And I saw the tears coming before she let them fall. "I was scared," she whispered, "of the life we built. Of how settled it all was. It felt like I'd blinked and woke up in a version of my life that didn't feel like mine." I crossed my arms. "So, instead of talking to me, you dug up your past and brought him into our present." She nodded. "Yes." There was no defense in her tone, just hollow admission. She pulled a small photo out of her coat pocket. It was us, from our honeymoon, the beach in Santa Cruz. I was squinting at the sun, holding her in my arms. She was laughing. "I carried this," she said, voice cracking, "to remind me of who we were before I ruined it." I stared at the photo, remembering the exact moment it was taken. How sure I was that day. Of her. Of us. "I didn't know how to fix it," she whispered. "And when I saw you were gone, when I came home and everything you owned was just gone, I realized I'd lost you for good." "Not lost," I said. "You gave me away." We sat in silence for a long time. "I didn't reach out," I finally said, "because I didn't want to give you the satisfaction of closure. I didn't want to play the role of the forgiving husband. I disappeared because that was the only thing left that was mine." "I deserve that," she said. "No," I replied. "You didn't deserve anything. That's the problem. You were entitled to comfort and companionship and passion, but only if it was convenient. And when it wasn't, you reached backward instead of forward." Rachel buried her face in her hands. "I lost my job," she whispered, "a few months after you left. I couldn't focus. I couldn't sleep. I stopped seeing Ethan. He wasn't what I remembered. He didn't want a future, just nostalgia." I watched her break. Not because I wanted to, but because it was the only way I knew she finally understood what she threw away. "I'm not here to win you back," she said, finally meeting my eyes. "I just needed to say it. All of it. Even if you never speak to me again. Even if I walk out of here and we never cross paths again. I needed you to know that I regret everything." I didn't respond. She stood up, smoothed out her coat. "I'm staying at a hotel just outside town. If you ever want to talk, or yell, or anything, I'll be there." And then she left. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the same spot on the bed, staring at the door, wondering if I was still angry or just tired. Wondering if you can miss someone and still know they're wrong for you. Wondering if healing means confronting the person who broke you or walking away for good. I didn't know what I was going to do next, but I knew this wasn't over. Not yet. I waited 3 days. I told myself it was over, that she'd said what she needed to say, and I could go on living without looking back. But something kept gnawing at me. Not forgiveness, not sympathy, just unfinished business. You can only carry so many ghosts before they start whispering in your ear. So on Sunday morning, I drove to the address she'd left behind. A quiet little motel off the highway. One of those places that looked like it had seen 100 regrets before ours. I didn't knock right away. I sat in the car, engine off, hands gripping the steering wheel like I was preparing for a crash. Then I got out. One knock. 2 seconds. The door opened. She looked stunned, like she hadn't expected me to actually come. Her hair was damp, her eyes swollen. A half-eaten salad sat on the desk behind her. "I wasn't sure you'd." "Don't read into this," I said quickly. "I don't know why I'm here." She stepped back, silently letting me in. I stood awkwardly near the bed, like a guest in a life I used to own. "You want water or—" "No." We stood in silence. I don't know what I'm supposed to say, she said finally. I've been rewriting this conversation in my head for a year. Now I just feel small. Good, I said. That's what truth does. Shrinks egos. She nodded, tears welling up again, but this time I didn't feel anything for them. I want to ask you something, I said, and I want you to answer honestly. No performance. She nodded slowly. If I hadn't left, would you have stopped? Rachel didn't speak right away. She looked down at her hands like the truth was hiding in her palms. No, she whispered. I think I would have kept both. You and him. I would have justified it. Lied to you. Lied to myself. I didn't flinch. I just let her words sit in the room, heavy and sour. But when you left, I realized something, she continued. He didn't love me. He loved the version of me that existed in his memories. And when I tried to fit into that mold, I realized how fake it was. How empty. And then, I had no one. Her honesty felt like a confession at a funeral. You were my home, she said, and I treated you like a backup plan. She handed me a letter. Folded. Handwritten. I wrote this the day after you left. I never sent it because I didn't think I had the right. But it's everything I wanted to say when the silence started swallowing me. I didn't open it. Not yet. Instead, I asked, why now? Why find me after all this time? Her voice cracked. Because I'm not the same person who let you slip through her fingers. I had to lose everything to see it. Maybe you were never supposed to have it, I replied. She nodded like she agreed. I understand, she said. If you walk out of this room and never speak to me again, I won't chase you. I just wanted to own what I did. And if one day, if you ever find space for grace, I'll still be in this world hoping you're okay. I stood up. She didn't move, didn't beg, didn't reach for my hand. And that, somehow, made it worse. Because it meant she really was broken now. Not playing a part. Just wreckage. I walked out. Didn't say goodbye. That night, I opened the letter. Lucas, I've rewritten this 100 times. None of the words are enough, but I'll say them anyway. I was ungrateful. I was selfish. I thought love was something that stayed, even when you stopped feeding it. But now I understand. It dies when you starve it. And I starved what we had, while feeding something that was already dead. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just want you to know that if love were math, I never stopped counting you. If it were time, I never stopped waiting for it to feel like us again. I was just too foolish to realize that us wasn't something I could find in anyone else. You were always my first good choice. I'm sorry I didn't treat you like it. Rachel, I folded the letter and sat with it in my lap. There was a part of me that wanted to scream, another part that wanted to hold her. But the loudest part? The one that just wanted peace. A week passed. Then two. No texts. No calls. No knocks. Just silence. And it was during that silence that I realized something I never thought I'd admit. I didn't hate her anymore. I wasn't sure I loved her. But I didn't hate her. And maybe that was the beginning of whatever came next. Forgiveness isn't some grand gesture. It doesn't arrive like thunder or lightning or some cinematic revelation. It comes quiet, subtle, like waking up one morning and realizing the knot in your chest isn't as tight as it used to be. That's how it started. I didn't suddenly trust Rachel again. I didn't rush back to the version of us that existed before the lies. But I woke up one day, made my coffee, and realized I didn't replay the betrayal in my head like I used to. Her voice didn't echo with guilt in my memory anymore. Her absence didn't sting, it just existed. I wasn't healed, but I was healing. About a month after our last meeting, I got an envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a stack of papers. Divorce finalized. She'd signed everything. No contest. No claims to anything. She even included a typed note. I didn't want to drag you into court. You deserve peace, not a battle. Everything is in your name. I'll let go of it all. Not out of punishment, but because it was never really mine to begin with. Thank you for the years I never deserved. I stared at the signature at the bottom. Rachel Marie Laskin. Her name felt distant now, like someone I once loved in another life. Someone whose face I could still picture clearly, but not whose voice I still heard in my sleep. Weeks turned into months. I got a new place, a bit bigger, more light. I started painting again, a hobby I hadn't touched in years. I wasn't good at it, but it gave my hands something to do when my mind wandered. I reconnected with my brother. Took a trip out west for a week. Just the two of us. Hiked through the mountains. Sat under a sky so wide and open it made the past feel small. And every once in a while, I thought of her. Not with bitterness. Not even with longing. Just with that quiet ache that lives in places time doesn't erase. One afternoon, I saw her again. Pure accident. I was at a bookstore, one of those small, locally owned ones that smells like dust and paper and coffee. I turned a corner in the nonfiction aisle, and there she was. Rachel. She froze. So did I. She had a copy of The Power of Letting Go in her hand. She laughed just once and said, "On brand." I smirked. Little too on the nose, yeah. We stood there in silence for a moment that felt like a decision. Then she spoke. "How are you?" "Better." She nodded. "I'm glad." "You?" She gave a small shrug. Still figuring it out, but lighter than before. I nodded, not because I needed to, but because I understood. We ended up walking to the cafe next door. Just two people trying to outrun a past they built together. We didn't talk about the affair, or the letter, or the silence. We talked about the weather, about her new job, about the fact that she was taking night classes for counseling. "I want to help people not make the same mistakes I did," she said. And I believed her. After an hour, we said goodbye. No promises, no dramatic moments. Just a hug, a real one. One that didn't carry the weight of expectation. Just mutual respect for surviving each other. Later that night, I sat in my apartment, looking out the window at the street below. And for the first time in a long time, I thought, I'm okay. Not perfect, not untouched, but okay. Redemption didn't come wrapped in some beautiful new romance. It didn't come through revenge or karma or her falling apart. It came in the quiet decision to live well. To love again, not someone else, not yet, but myself. To know that being betrayed didn't mean I was unworthy. To believe that pain doesn't define you, how you rise from it does. Rachel was a chapter, not my ending. And as I closed that book, I smiled, not because it didn't hurt, but because I was finally ready to write something new. 6 months passed. I was working again full-time, moved into a condo closer to the edge of the city. I started jogging in the mornings, something I never thought I'd enjoy. But when the world's still quiet and the air is cold enough to wake your bones, that's when the noise inside my head was the quietest. I wasn't watching the calendar anymore. Wasn't counting the days since I last saw Rachel. I still carried pieces of her in the corners of my memory, sure, but I had stopped bleeding from them. And then, one morning, I opened my mailbox and found something strange. A familiar envelope. This time from me. I blinked, confused, pulled it out, turned it over. My handwriting. My old return address. It was the letter I wrote but never mailed. The one I penned in the weeks after I left. Raw, spiteful, honest. I'd tucked it away in a box, thinking I'd burned it. But I hadn't. I must have sealed it, addressed it, and forgotten. Maybe I needed to write it to let go, and life, or fate, or God decided now was the time I needed to read it. I opened it slowly. Rachel, if you're reading this, it means I didn't say everything I needed to before I left. Maybe I was afraid. Maybe I wanted to punish you with silence. Or maybe I thought you didn't deserve to know how much it broke me. But I'm going to tell you anyway. You didn't just betray me. You made me question myself. I looked in the mirror and wondered what was wrong with me. Why I wasn't enough. Why love wasn't enough. And that's what hurt the most. You made me believe the failure was mine. But now I understand something. You were scared. You were looking for a version of yourself that no longer existed. And you used someone else's arms to try and find her. But that's not how it works. You can't time travel through other people. And while I may not forgive you now, I hope one day I will. Not for you. For me. Because I want to be free. And because love, real love, doesn't deserve to be buried in bitterness. Goodbye, Rachel. Lucas. I finished reading and sat there in silence. It felt like someone else had written it. A version of me that no longer existed. Angry. Broken. Desperate for closure. But now, I was past him. A few weeks later, I got an email. No subject. No greeting. Just this. I read your letter. Every word. I'm still crying. But somehow, I feel like I can breathe for the first time. Thank you for giving me that. It was from Rachel. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. And that was the most peaceful silence of all. 6 months later, I met someone new. Her name's Ava. We met at an open gallery night. She stood in front of one of my paintings for 10 minutes, then turned and said, "It's sad, but it's honest." I smiled. That was the first time I felt something real in a long time. She didn't ask about my past. Not right away. And I didn't rush to tell it. We built something different, not based on old wounds, but on who we were becoming. One night, after dinner, Ava and I took a walk under the city lights. She grabbed my hand as we passed a little bookstore. I paused. The same bookstore where I'd seen Rachel. I looked through the window. For a moment, I wondered what might have been. But I didn't feel loss. I felt gratitude. Not for the pain, but for surviving it. Redemption doesn't always mean reunion. Sometimes it's the quiet act of rebuilding, of choosing peace over punishment, of finding joy again without forgetting who you had to become to earn it. I walked forward with Ava, hand in hand, not looking back. And for the first time in a long time, I was home,